questions.
Right.
Or you suggest something, they can let me know. So I think that was their summary document that the streamlining committee had gone through. So I think that's available for me to be able to send out.
It's all online. They sent it to everybody. Next year,
Okay.
or this at the annual assembly.
Oh, okay.
So my term is
Good evening. I would like to call to order the August 10, 2020 Lake Washington School Board meeting. Let the record reflect that all board members are present and participating remotely. All meeting participants will also be joining the meeting remotely in alignment with the current proclamation issued by Governor Inslee. The board meeting will be live streamed and viewable on the district's website. If you are unable to live stream the meeting, viewers can call in at 206-800-4750. That's 206-800-4750. Conference ID 167-741-130, followed by the pound signal. 167-741-130, followed by pound. Regular board meetings will continue to be live streamed on the Lake Washington School District website and posted for viewing within 2 days. I will now entertain a motion to approve the August 10 agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Bleasner and seconded by Director Sage that we approve the agenda. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
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 All those opposed, hearing none, the motion carries. The next item on our agenda tonight is public comment. And due to the coronavirus, all board meetings are being held remotely. Please note there will be no in-person public comment to ensure social distancing. The Board of Directors welcomes the public in the business meetings of the board to encourage community engagement, and the board dedicates 30 minutes at these meetings to hear from the public during a public comment period. Currently, there are 3 options to submit public comment: written, orally, or televised public comment. Please refer to the district website for detailed instructions to submit comments to the board. We have one guest who is I guess waiting to give live public comment via video. Diane, can you let Ms. Wanji in?
I did.
Oh, she is done. The first public comment we'll take tonight then is from Sandrine Wanji, who has signed up to provide public comment at the meeting. Ms. Wanji, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. We typically limit speakers to 3 minutes, so please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sandrine Wanji. I'm here with my husband, Severin Wanji. We are parents of 3 kids in the Lake Washington School District, 3 African-American kids, and we are also member of FABS. And FABS has submitted a letter to the board I think it was a week or 2 ago. And I just want to reiterate that for us as Black parents, it is very important that the district make sure that there is a measure are put in place for a safe return for all African American kids by September 1st and district-wide. I truly wish that you provide a safe, equitable, and inclusive environment for those kids when they come back to school, even if it's remotely. And the second aspect of my remark will be, I was wondering why our Director of Equity is not sitting at a cabinet meeting. I think if we have someone working on equity for our district, they should be at every cabinet meeting to make sure that they bring their voice when we take decisions that will impact all kids, and particularly kids of color and marginalized kids. I think that's all that I had to say. I will let my husband give him. Would you like to add anything, Severin?
I think Sandrine covered it, and it's important not only for our children and for every children to get back to school in an environment that they trust, in an environment that is viable for learning. And the reason why we're mentioning our children, our African American children, is because their experience is different. the experience is completely different. There's not many like them. There is not many who actually have a really good understanding and appreciation of their experience. And that's why we think that we really have to stress that, to make sure that as they go back, it's important that they feel welcome. And I'm saying that because a lot has happened since the lockdown. A lot has happened in the country since March, since they've not been to school. What it tells me is, because they've not been in that environment of exchange and discussion with their classmates, with everything happening, as they meet, as they discuss, our interaction start, especially above middle school and high school, there could be some really tricky interactions based on everything that's going on around the country. We believe that it's important for the district altogether to work as a family. And I mean, this is a family of education to get the future of this country, ensuring that everything is all right for every children, and in particular for our children, because they have a different experience.
Thank you both for taking the time to do this, and also for being our first live remote public speakers on this. So thank you for doing that. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to us.
Oh, here we are. I'm back. And thank you again so much. I really appreciate it. We'll keep going through the public comment now.
Thanks.
Okay. We have received a number of written public comments, more than we will have time to get through tonight. Any that we do not have time to read aloud all public comment will be posted to the website under the board tab. I will read the first email that we received, then I'll ask Ms. Sage, or Director Sage, would you be willing to read the next public comment on the list? Okay. The first public comment we received was sent to us by looks like 10 different community members. It was from Andrea Knott, Kim Miller, Mandy Maudlin Nash, Kimberly Dare, Renee Codgel Lewis, Julie Nelson, Mara Fetters, Mako Guest, Colleen Rutherford, Allison Sherrill, and Lori Boyd. And they wrote to us, I am urgently seeking a response to the district's Black LWSD students' demands for action to ensure a safe return to school and an equitable education for Black students. The demands addressing four critical areas were submitted on June 22nd and have not received a public response from the board. Those demands were transparency and accountability, professional development and accountability, equitable recruiting, retention, inclusion, and curriculum reform. Given the current racial tensions in our nation and local community, it is imperative to every student's education and safety for you to respond. Black and brown students are legally entitled to an equitable, visible, accessible, and appropriate education.
And the next public comment is from Allison Sherrill. In addition, I want to say that the retention of the Rebels mascot at Juanita High School until recently signals a deep problem in this district. It is incredible that a name most prominently associated with soldiers fighting for a racist regime aiming to split the United States would be kept for so long, especially when Confederate symbols were incorporated into the logo for a period in the 80s, removing all plausible deniability about the meaning of this term. I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and as a young person, I assumed that progressive places outside my region would not engage in the kind of racism that I routinely observed there. Changing this mascot is a good step, but much deeper systemic changes are needed to ensure that Black and brown students get the education they are entitled to in the environment they deserve, and to ensure that white students do not unthinkingly take on attitudes that seem unremarkable to them, but in fact perpetuate inequality for their classmates.
Director Belizner, are you able to read the next public comment we received from Joy Randall?
Yes. So this is from Joy Randall. I recently attended a teach-in organized by young BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, People of Color, women who had graduated from Lake Washington School District. They shared stories of overt and covert racism they experienced in our own schools they attended. I felt a naiveness as I listened, thinking that our open-minded, progressive area would not have situations like that happen. We must truly open our eyes and make the changes that the reckoning of our country is doing, should be doing, to break the grip of white supremacy in society, particularly in our school systems. Recently, Superintendent Holman met with Black parents to address their concerns of the lack of urgency to implement these demands: transparency and accountability, professional development and accountability, equitable recruiting, and curriculum reform. I as well have not received in response to my last letters to you and also to Mr. Holman about enriching the curriculum with Black Indigenous history, authors, leaders, a commitment to providing anti-racism training to all staff/teachers in the district, adopting a social justice framework and teaching all subjects, and additional budget support with a position on the cabinet for Equity Director Gloria Henderson. You may hear and agree that this is not the time to make these changes since we are in a pandemic and only doing online teaching. Please do not accept that narrative and instead take this time and opportunity to make the necessary changes now. There is a tremendous amount of resources available to begin. Here is just one: Washington State Ethnic Studies Now, a group of anti-racist, ethnic studies educator activists who came together to support the implementation of ethnic studies statewide. They provide training as well, and the website is included. I wish to hear a response to this letter. Thank you.
Director Carlson, are you able to read the next submission we received? I believe it's from Lori Boyd.
Sure. We would like to see action by the Lake Washington School District to be a leader in this area and a role model for other districts in our state and country to follow. Thank you for direct and swift action to acknowledge these families, their concerns, and to work with all families, especially families of color in our district, toward an actionable plan to help ensure equity for all. Thanks.
Director Stewart, the next one we have is from Abby Hu. Are you able to read that?
Yes, I am. 1 second, please.
No problem.
There we are. Abby Hu. My name is Abby Hu, and I'm a rising senior attending Eastlake High School. When I look at the meeting agenda and see no mentions of race and equity discussion, I become disappointed yet not surprised. Meeting after meeting, I hope and expect to see something about race and equity on the agenda, yet there is none. Just because some incidences of LWSD students saying the N-word on public media that has been shared over 1,000 times has been forgotten, quote unquote, does not mean that you can ignore that this kind of behavior, this kind of upsetting behavior exists on LWSD grounds as well, not just outside school. These students represent Lake Washington School District, and it is a disgusting look on your part. Again, I anticipate to see the following questions answered at future meetings. How will LWSD diversify their administration and staff? How will LWSD hire more counselors of various backgrounds? Counselors at Eastlake High School are white, heterosexual, cisgender, and individuals. How will LWSD protect BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, People of Color, and LGBTQIA, lesbian, gay, bisexual, pansexual, transgender, genderqueer, queer, intersect, agender, asexual, and ally community students? How will LWSD reprimand unacceptable behavior? And no, telling a student don't say that again is the equivalent of a light slap on the wrist. It does nothing to teach them anything. I would like to thank Eastlake High School's principal, Dr. Beatty, or Mr. Beatty, for reaching out to me after the last board meeting to schedule a meeting to discuss race and equity specific to Eastlake, as well as solutions and ideas. It meant a lot. To the all-white district board, do better to amplify BIPOC and LGBTQIA voices, plus voices, and listen to what they have to say and address the problems that exist in LWSD. Get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. I'm calling on Lake Washington School District to collectively do better. End of comment.
Thank you, Director Stewart. I'll read the next submission from, which is from Aditi Goyle. My name is Aditi Goyle, and I'm a rising junior at Eastlake High School. More than a third of students at our school are BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, People of Color, and yet only 12% of EHS staff are BIPOC, and none of them are administrators or counselors. All the counselors at Eastlake are white, and despite their efforts, are not able to understand cultural differences and racism, which impacts BIPOC students. Topics such as mental health, grades, sexuality, and family pressure are handled differently in many BIPOC families, all of which greatly impact students. How can counselors help students if a third of us cannot find someone to relate to? Events like the AP Information Night, handled by administrators, displayed how little understanding is present for BIPOC students. One of the 3 examples students were taking several AP classes, playing tennis, and playing an instrument, along with other commitments. Though the other 2 students were leading more balanced lives, and Mr. Apple warned against taking too many advanced classes, I heard numerous BIPOC families using that one student as an example, telling their children to participate in 4 or more AP classes, saying that the administration didn't understand them. Many immigrant families highly value education and may prioritize grades over mental wellness. Despite few warnings against taking too many AP classes, using an overworked example student was counterintuitive and sent the wrong message to all families, but especially to those who already value education more highly than other cultures. If anything, the contrast between the examples and the words of the administration proved to families that Eastlake faculty is out of touch with the cultures at their school. We need to know, how will Eastlake improve their resources for BIPOC students, and will this change be reflected in the diversity of staff? And thank you. That was from Aditi Goyle, a student at Eastlake High School. Director Bleasner, would you read the next? I'm sorry, I skipped over. Director Sage, you're next. From Crystal Vesperis.
Yes. My name is Crystal Vesperis, and I'm a 14th year teacher and 2nd year teacher in the district. I want to call your attention to the LWSD website. LWSD's commitment to racial equity has not been updated since June 1st. The latest date for any resources on your website is June 10th. As we already know, anti-bias and anti-racism is a lifelong and continual journey. As Dr. Ibram Kendi reiterates, we can be anti-racist one minute and an oppressor the next. I respectfully urge you to ask yourself, why is it August 10th and more visual and verbal support for BIPOC has not been shown to the community? Why do I, person of color, need to remind the white people again to do the work and boldly share the learnings of your anti-bias and anti-racist work with the community? We need to see that the school board members and the school district believe in active equity and social justice measures and values, and that you are absolutely committed to infusing those measures and values in this changing, challenging, and necessary uphill battle. Silence is the oppressor's tool, and if this matters to you, and you, school board, want to support and defend your communities, staff, parents, and students of color, please revamp and update your opportunity and equity statement and resources. And this update needs to be a weekly or more frequent basis, as there is always something new to learn and to share. We need to see you talking about the work of anti-racism, being uncomfortable and recognizing your privilege as an all-white school board council, engaging with BIPOC communities, and again, proclaiming that Black Lives Matter.
Thank you. Director Bleasner, can you read the next public comment?
From Diana Williams?
Yes.
Okay, so this is from Diana Williams. I'm a mother of 3 Black sons, 2 of which have attended Lake Washington School District for the past 13 years. On June 10th, I became aware of an email sent to my son's high school community from its principal acknowledging systemic racism and that Black students' expression of not feeling safe. This acknowledgement and the inequities in education made apparent through key statistics and my personal experience would lead me to the conclusion that the LWSD has a state of emergency as it relates to the approximately 700 students in the Lake Washington School District. The doors of LWSD schools closed in March to keep students, teachers, and staff safe. For 6 weeks, instruction was not delivered, in part due to concerns to equitable access to education of marginalized students. The school district has resorted to extraordinary measures to ensure the safe return and equitable access of its students in light of the pandemic. The LWSD board's response to inequitable access to education by Black students, a racially based education, and the safety of Black students has been nominal at best. We are in the midst of a global health crisis, and the deaths of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd have increased racial tensions to heights which we have not seen in 30 years. Whether my sons are remote or in person, the LWSD district cannot ensure their safety under current policies, practices, and overall conditions. As a parent, I want a plan from the school board, district, and each school of what they are doing to immediately address implicit bias and systemic racism. On June 22nd, FABC, Family Alliance of Black Student Excellence, submitted a letter with demands in 4 crucial areas to address systemic racism and implicit bias: transparency and accountability, 2, professional development and accountability, 3, equitable recruiting, retention, and inclusion, and 4, curriculum reform. And that's the end. Thank you.
Dr. Carlson, can you read the last public comment we received?
Sure thing. So Deanna Wu writes, "It is imperative to each student's safety and education that the board publicly acknowledge and respond before the first day of school. I'm wondering what is being done to support anti-racism in our schools and education. I know priority is safety and health during this pandemic, but now would also be the time to update curriculum in the areas of social injustice. Thanks for all you do and for the hard work that you and the LWSD staff and board have been doing, especially in this unprecedented time. Crazy for sure." End of comment.
Okay, 2 quick things before we move on to the next item on our agenda. The first is, for all those watching, I want to remind you that public comment can be submitted by email to djenkins@lwsd.org by 3 p.m. on the day of the board meeting. In addition, for those who are able to provide televised public comment, we really appreciate that. And you can make a request to do so by also emailing Diane Jenkins at djenkins@lwsd.org by 1 p.m. on the day of the board meeting. And you provided a link to access the Microsoft Teams meeting for the night. So thank you again to Ms. Wanji again for being our first participant doing that. I think it's really helpful for the board to hear the voice of the person who's making a public comment rather than us reading it aloud. Second thing is a number of community members asked, what is on the board's agenda as far as equity work. On the meeting agenda for tonight is the board's work plan for the upcoming year. While it does not say on the agenda that we're dealing with issues of equity as part of the agenda item, that is something we're going to be discussing tonight. In particular, the process for working on our inequity policy that we discussed as a board. So that is on the agenda tonight for the study session, which follows this business meeting. It's just not labeled as such. Okay. Thank you again to everyone who submitted public comment, and we're right at 30 minutes, so perfect. The right volume too. Director Carlson?
So I wanted to say thank you to the people who've been, we've rarely gotten the quantity and quality of public comment that we've gotten in the last month and a half. And for everybody who has written in, you may not have ever attended a board meeting. Our usual policy when we have someone speak at the board meetings is that it's not really a conversation. If you want a conversation, contact us individually or directly. And if there is follow-up that's to be had, usually we refer that to the administration where it is appropriate for the administration to follow up, as opposed to our individual board members recontacting you. I do very much appreciate, and I'm sure that my colleagues also appreciate, the the urgency of this situation and the urgency that is felt by everybody who's communicating with us on this topic. Thank you for asking us to respond to you specifically when you want a response to your letter from the school board. That does help us. In practice, many of those of you who've demanded a response from the school board, I can tell you that what you're asking is not something that the school board controls, that this is more of an administration response that you're asking for, and we would typically refer that to the administration to respond on our behalf. It does not mean that we are not interested in your problems. It does not mean that we do not consider this highly important. And I appreciate many of you who have called into question whether we take equity seriously. And it is worth pointing out that it was on our school board's priorities more than a year ago that equity was a major, one of our 3 top priorities for the board. It remains such and will remain such, but we can't revamp curriculums in the span of 3 weeks. That is long-term work performed by the administration where the board can get behind that. But we will move with all due haste as we can where it is our responsibility. And I think I can speak for the board in saying that we are enthusiastically encouraging the administration to move with all haste on things that are in their domain. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Carlson. The next item on our agenda tonight is approval of the August 10 consent agenda. I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Stewart and seconded by Director Bleasner that we approve the consent agenda. Dr. Holman, will you please poll the board?
Yes.
Director Bleasner?
Yes.
Director Carlson?
Yes.
Vice President Stewart?
Yes.
And President Liberty?
Yes. Dr. Holman, 2 things. First, I just want to remind you that it looks like you're about to be blinded by the sun as it sets again. Okay. And second, will you please summarize the donations?
I will. It's always a privilege to see the ongoing donations that our community and PTSA provide for the ongoing work in our school district. And so I'm pleased tonight to recognize our PTSA for donating, even during the summer in preparation for the school year, for a total of $14,185. So we thank our PTSA for that support and their ongoing commitment to our students and our school district.
Thank you, Dr. Holman. Our first item on the non-consent agenda is the public hearing for the adoption of the 2019-2020 budget. Dr. Holman, would you please lead us through that?
Absolutely. And so tonight, Associate Superintendent Barbara Posthumus is here to provide an update regarding the next step in the process regarding our 2021 school year budget. I do want to point out to the board that even in the midst of this budget process, we are thinking about potentially, do we need to come back to the board just to provide an update related to budget type issues? We were talking today, there's potential revenue changes that could be coming down the pike throughout this school year, and we want to keep the board apprised of that. Should we need to take action? We know transportation is a question right now. We know that other districts are currently projecting lower enrollment. That is not the case here, but we don't know that every student will show up on day 1 of school, and so we need to be prepared and thoughtful that enrollment changes could happen. We don't know whether there will be legislative changes or directives or changes in funding as part of their legislative session that starts in January. And we also know that with this current virus, as staff are returning back to work, there's the potential for some leave that could occur. And with that, there's federal and state mandates for maintaining benefits and things like that, given certain conditions. So there's a number of different items that could change the budget picture. And so while we're presenting you the budget for the 2021 school year, we also know that there is going to need to be thought and attention to this throughout the year. And so we will plan for that as we look at the work plan to make sure that we build in time for that as well, should that be needed. And so with that, I will ask Associate Superintendent Barbara Posthumus to join us and walk us through the next steps of the hearing.
Great, thank you, John. Yes, and I'm going to first, before I have comments, I'm going to have Director Chris Brannigan go over kind of the steps in the process that we've taken since June. So I'm going to bring Chris on, and he will walk you through that process.
Thanks, Barbara. Hi, I'm Chris Brannigan, Director of Business Services. I just want to remind everybody this is the public hearing for the 2021 budget that the board will be adopting on August 24th. The board will be adopting the F195 budget, which is the official budget document. The budget must be adopted by August 31st and be filed with the ESD by September 3rd per WAC 392-123-054. In addition, we also provide our regular award-winning budget summary that provides additional transparency for the community and shows how resources are aligned with our strategic goals. A copy of the budget summary was included in the board packet for today's meeting and is posted on the website. Hard copies of both the F195 budget and the budget summary are available for anyone that is interested by contacting Business Services. These documents can also be found online on Lake Washington's website by going to Programs and Services, Business Services, Budget and Financial Reports, Proposed 2020-21 Budget. The 2021 budget was developed by gathering input from schools and departments and working with the Strategic Advisory Leadership Team, otherwise known as SALT, on developing the priorities. On June 22nd, we presented the draft budget to the board in detail. The budget was posted on the web, and required ads were placed in the local papers, including Redmond, Kirkland, Issaquah, and Sammamish Reporters. Those were only available online, so we also published in the Seattle Times newspaper. Copies of the budget were made available to interested parties, and a place to email comments about the budget was provided. We did not receive any requests from the public for the budget document, nor did we receive any emails through public comment. However, the website did receive over 130 views. The resolution to adopt the budget contains the appropriation amounts for each fund. At this time, I'd like to thank those that participated in the budget process this year, and also thank the budget office staff for their hard work in putting this budget together.
Thank you, Chris. And Chris and his team did an excellent job and worked really hard. As I mentioned in June, it's challenging to put a budget together and all of the other work that we're doing when we are fully remote and when we had stay-at-home orders back in March and April. So I appreciate all the work they did. And I just also want to remind the board on the resolution, the resolution also requests the board this year to authorize the fund balance set aside in the economic stabilization account. So that is part of the resolution language this year as well. So I think what's next is, that concludes my comments. If there's any questions.
Any questions from any board members? Director Sage?
Yeah, are you going to go through in detail, Barbara, what that committed funds for economic stabilization are?
So right now, it's a set aside for those things that Dr. Holman mentioned. So really the impacts, the potential revenue shortfalls that we may receive, such as transportation, our unknown enrollment picture, any future legislative impacts.
I'm guessing as a member of the community, it might be confusing to understand if that is confusing for me. If those funds mean something else is not happening because we're setting this aside, so it might be helpful to walk through that.
Sure. No, it's what we're doing is setting aside fund balance that we already have that we could then use in the future should these conditions exist, such as lower enrollment or reduced revenues. And so it is not our budget proposal that we're proposing has full revenues and expenditures per our planned budget. So it is not reducing any spending in the budget.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other board member questions? Okay, and I just, for those watching at home, this is not the first time the board has seen this budget. So we've had the opportunity and have asked our questions previously. So I think it's indicative of how a good job that Barbara and the team has done that we don't have any additional comments tonight. Okay, so like I said, this time I will open the public hearing for the adoption of the 2020. Did I earlier I said the 2019-2020 budget? Am I misspeaking now, or am I want to make sure I have the year correct.
It is the 2020-21 budget that we are having the hearing and adoption.
I just had a typo in my notes. Okay, thank you. So just to be clear to everyone, I am opening the public hearing for the adoption of the 2020-2021 budget. State statutes require the board to hold a public hearing on the budget and adopt the budget by resolution, which also establishes the tax levies necessary to support the general fund, the capital projects fund, and the debt service fund. The board is scheduled to adopt the budget by resolution at our next meeting on August 24th. Written comments have been solicited. And Barbara, have we received any written comment?
We have not received any written comments through today.
Okay. Well, and there's nobody signed up to give public comment on this live tonight. So the public hearing is now closed. Is there any additional board discussion? Okay. As stated earlier, the board is scheduled to approve the resolution to adopt the 2020-2021 budget at the August 24 board meeting. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Chris, too. The next item on the non-consent agenda is the 2020-2021 reopening plan, resolution number 2299. And Dr. Holman, would you provide the board with an update on this before we go forward?
Absolutely. I'm just pulling up a presentation. As you'll see in your board packet, resolution 2299 really outlines the experience, the information, the data, the proclamations, the actions the school district has taken, not only during the school closures last year, but it's everything that has led up to our planning for reopening in the fall. You'll see at the end of the resolution, there's a key requirement of all school districts right now, and that is to adopt a reopening plan. It's a template that is been prescribed by the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction, and you'll see that in your resolution, you are really directing me as superintendent to take that action of completing that plan. I do want to walk through tonight the, let's see, sorry, I'm having to repair my Microsoft screen here. There we go. I just want to provide the board with a level of detail about our planning to provide evidence that the work that we are talking about is being done thoroughly, and that everything that we've talked about over the last few months, just to provide an update. And so this adoption of the reopening plan and resolution 2299, it really flows into our return to school task force presentation that we have tonight. And so for my presentation, have just combined those, but in the middle of the presentation, I will pause President LaLiberty so that you and the board can have discussion and take your formal action on the resolution. But prior to that, I do want to walk through this information. And so, as a reminder, this is work that we have been engaged in since last spring, knowing that what fall 2020 would look like was a bit unknown, but we knew it would not be typical. Our goal is always that we have students in person learning from their teachers, and we know that right now, for the majority of students in Lake Washington, that is not how they're going to start their 2021 school year. Our work has been grounded in our mission of graduating students and our vision of actually preparing our students to be future ready. Every decision that we've made, every plan that we've put together is all about ensuring that our mission and vision are continuing to move forward. We set guiding principles at the beginning of this process to really help guide our work as we put plans together. We identified 5 specific goals that would help us evaluate our work as we were talking about health and safety, as we were talking about student learning, as we were talking about all of the different aspects related to ensuring that our reopening plan was prioritizing and really identifying the right areas. And so I want to walk through 4 different pieces of planning information to provide information to the board as you are taking action on the resolution this evening. The first is the OSPI reopening plan. I just want to give you a preview of that. The Department of Health provided a decision tree for phasing back to in-person learning. Last week, the governor provided that to the state, and that was information that school districts and superintendents had been asking for. Also want to talk a little bit about the Lake Washington School District Return to School Workbook and our COVID-19 safety plan. And so the reopening plan template and requirements that OSPI has provided, it really is a series of checkboxes and really to assure that we have thought through all of the different components that are in this plan. But I want to point out a couple of things. This plan must be adopted through a local board resolution. That resolution is in front of you tonight, and it has you giving me authority to turn that plan in and finalize that plan on your behalf. That second piece there is that we have to use this reopening plan template. We don't have an option to use another type of plan, and it has to be submitted within 2 weeks of our first day of school. Our reopening plan, it must be approved by our governing body, that is you as the school board, directing me as the superintendent to complete that to the level needed. And it must be posted on our website prior to the opening of school, which was something we will do after it is formally submitted. And then I think a key piece to this, and something that we have talked about since this work started, is that we need to be monitoring and adjusting throughout this process, knowing that conditions change, health and safety conditions will change through this process. And so this is just a screenshot of what the plan looks like. That is our completed formal Word document plan that we will submit. And our Lake Washington School District point of contact, who is Associate Superintendent Matt Gillingham, will formally submit that finalized plan. I spoke of the decision tree that came out of the Department of Health, and I want to provide kind of some key data from that plan. What that plan looks at is the different rates of COVID that are occurring across the state, and they categorize them into activity levels. And so currently right now, Lake Washington School District is categorized as a high-risk school district because we have more than 75 cases per 100,000 over the last 14 days. And so that's really a benchmark that we are keeping an eye on. Currently, as of, I believe it was last Wednesday, the rate of infection for King County was 91 cases per 100,000. And so what this decision tree does is it walks through at high risk, what is the modality that is recommended, and what is the recommendations around extracurriculars. And really right now, the decision we made in late July is in alignment with the recommendations that the Department of Health, is recommending here, which is really the majority of students learning remotely with a very small number of students learning in person. and you can see their extracurriculars really being paused right now, just given the risks involved of in-person activities. As you know, we have implemented many different activities using the platform Microsoft Teams, and we'll continue to do that to the extent possible. The next step in this thinking around a phased approach is really to further define those phases so that it's clear in our communication with the community around what that would look like moving forward. What do we mean by a phased approach? And so that is work that is ongoing. But as you look through that Department of Health decision tree, it really does a nice job of providing about a 10,000-foot view of what a phased reopening looks like that they would recommend. One of the things that we've been doing is documenting all of the work that goes into reopening school, either in a hybrid model or in a remote model. And so this is the start of what we're calling the workbook. And this is for our school administrators and our central administrators to have a documented version of all of the decisions that are being made, recommendations that have come from all of the work, and really, excuse me, a loud car right outside here, and really all of the thinking that has gone into our return to school task force work so that any administrator in the district can reference this when a decision comes up, and they really do have recommendations, requirements, and areas where schools can make decisions. And so the next steps around this is to complete each section in preparation for both in-person and remote learning. Another document I wanted to point out is what we're calling the Lake Washington School District COVID-19 Safety Plan. And later in the meeting tonight, you will hear Associate Superintendent Matt Gillingham talk more specifically about some health and safety planning pieces that are being put into place that we have informed our building leaders about so that they can start the implementation of that work at their schools. But what this does, it's about a 40-page document that outlines an array of areas related to school safety during this pandemic. And so the next steps around here is really our schools and sites to document who their leaders are in specific categories so that they can receive training and so that they can implement the safety protocols that are being recommended here that are based on recommendations from the CDC, the Department of Health, and OSHA. And I think ongoing in all of this is our commitment to continue planning and learning and looking at conditions, looking at decisions we made to make sure that they are being appropriately implemented, and as conditions change, work with the different stakeholders to implement a phased approach to our reopening of school during the 2021 school year. And with that, President LaLiberty, I will hand this back to you regarding taking action on Resolution 2299.
Okay. Board members, I will now entertain, well, first, are there any questions or comments from board members before we move forward? Director Bleasner?
Thank you. So in following up on the resolution, I'm not sure if it should be here or after the motion, but in reading through it, one of the comments in there, one of the whereases is, whereas Lake Washington School District is committed to addressing the needs of students furthest from educational justice. So as I'm reading through the resolution, how will we see that play out in the reopening plan, that is the commitment coming through that?
Yeah, and so I may ask some others on the call to provide details around that. I actually asked them to think about what are some of the things that we are doing as a district to provide access to students that we know may not access. The planning template that we submit to OSPI actually doesn't ask for specifics, and the specifics they do ask about, they only allow 250 characters to be able to respond to anything of substance. And so the true planning and details around assuring that those things are in place are happening outside of the OSPI plan. And so I'm just going to ask a few of our cabinet members to come on. Mike, I know you spoke with your directors, Matt and Sally, if you, and Dale, if the four of you could join us and provide an update around that, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, and I can speak to a few things, and I think Dale would probably go into a little more detail on the first one. So as you know, last year we monitored very closely connections. How many times were students actually participating in classes? To what extent were they completing work, et cetera? And we could see that there was disproportionality by race there. And so one of the things we're thinking about is how are we being much more intentional about reaching out to families, reaching out to students. And so we're building in supports for that through our bargaining with LWEA, through our work with building administrators, because one is we need to make sure we're connecting people to school. So that's a big factor. And we know that there's differences in connection by racial group. In addition, we also know that just academically, and we've talked about this in board meetings as well, we have differences in achievement based on students' access to high quality instruction, to learning experiences, to supports. So all of our academic teams, both at the elementary level and the secondary level, are working at how do we build in very intentionally really high quality academic support. So for example, Kelly Pease, our Director of Intervention Services, is working with her specialist to talk about building in consistent times in every single elementary schedule and every single secondary schedule to provide intensive interventions for students who need academic support. So that's going to be a big factor, and we're going to need to make sure that we guarantee it just like we guarantee it when students are in school. Similarly, for students with disabilities, as Dr. Holman mentioned, we're just looking at how do we deliver services and maybe in some cases even limited in-person services to make sure that students that were not connecting well to school last year will have better ways of connecting. So a lot of it has to do with connection, and then also making sure that we're building in those really high quality academic supports in a very systematic way. Now, again, there's much more to this in terms of being really intentional and really explicit about racial equity, and I think probably Matt will speak to that. But again, just in terms of the academic supports, we're trying to build those into schedules. We're trying to make sure that they're guaranteed. When students aren't connecting, we're reaching out to them, and we have systems to do that.
Yeah, I'll jump in a little bit in terms of talking a little bit about some of the communication. And one of the things that we're in the process of developing right now is we're moving to communicating through videos, short videos that we can send out to our community members. And we've contracted with an organization that can help provide that narration of those videos in different languages, so that we can look at accessibility from a linguistic standpoint, because that was one of the things we were observing in the spring, is noticing their discrepancies in terms of engagement on the basis of a family's home language. And so wanting to improve the accessibility of our communications home to families. We're also, right now we're in the midst of preparing our principals for returning to school, and our Director of Student Services and our Director of Equity, Opportunity, and Inclusion are going to be working with them over the next several days. And how do we support our teachers to ensure that they are creating strong relationships particularly in a remote environment with each of their students, and what are the opportunities to create stronger connections. And so that's a key part of our training this year. And then we're also looking at the ways in which policies in both a remote environment and kind of in our unique time, how those policies such as attendance and discipline, and thinking about applying a racial equity lens and looking at what guidance or changes do we need to make in order to ensure that we're not disenfranchising students. So there's a lot of work that's being done there as well. And like as Mike said, this is something that we're continuing to work on and evolve and think about as we're moving into a remote environment.
I think I would add, really in our division, it's a lot of coordination. I back up a step too. I think through the work in our LOU with the LWEA, we really spent some intentional time thinking and talking about how we approach this with an equity lens. And while we're not ready to share the LOU, that I think some of the things coming from that will be beneficial. School Support Services Division will partner with Teaching and Learning Services just to help identify students, create systems of academic support. I think we already know, based on the data in the spring, what students weren't connecting and which students maybe struggled in an online environment. And so we're going to be asking our building administrators to identify those students now and not wait to see which students aren't connecting. While there may be new students that pop up, we know who they are, so we need to start creating some systems here in August to figure out how to identify them and how do we reach out to them, and surrounding them with a variety of staff members who can support them to access.
And I'll go ahead and go last. So to remove technology barriers for students that are struggling to learn or connect, we're continuing and enhancing many of the things we started in the spring that we learned from. We'll be improving our family and student technology support by adding hours and people via third party to literally answer phones and respond to tier 1 tickets before they turn into an escalation point. We're looking at hopefully be able to negotiate 7 to 7 and 7 days a week. So 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. And more to come on that as we finalize the agreements with the organization that is already working with us on our parent questions line. We've identified the role and the attributes of a building staff and met with administrators called a family and school technology liaison that will work directly in tandem with the technology support specialists who we don't have enough to sit in every building. So they'll help us coordinate the literal exchange and handoff and work with the team, with the families, and make sure their technology is working. And if they need a repair, it's done very quickly. And we've developed a narrated family and guardian guide to Microsoft Teams, which you'll hear more about towards the end of this board meeting, and we'll share it with you. And we'll be translating it to multiple languages through our communications department. We're also adding, we're working to add with Microsoft some help for office hours for parents to call in and talk to some of Microsoft staff on the basics of using Microsoft Teams or setting up their wireless network, maybe troubleshooting some challenges, and also do one-to-many webinars. And then lastly, we are continuing to ensure our families have hotspots. And right now, based on the information we have, we believe we have plenty of them and available for families to use as we identify them.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry, Dr. Holman, go ahead.
Nope, go ahead.
Okay, I saw a couple other board member hands went up. Director Stewart and then Director Sage.
No, I just wanted to comment, John. To me, the resolution, and it's more of a strategic approach, and then the tactics come later. Is that what I'm reading correctly?
I think the resolution is to really outline the situation.
More of a big picture than my not picture comes later.
Will you repeat that, Mark?
I'm sorry. My understanding is it's really kind of the high level look at it. The resolution is kind of a broad stroke, if you will, whereas the tactical or the fine tuning or the fine print really comes in to follow this, correct?
Yes, and that's why I shared with you the kind of some of those guiding documents that we're creating, because those are, 40 pages of the safety plan, and the playbook will end up being 70, 80, 150 pages in length.
Yeah, I would, I don't know about other board members, but I think it would be very helpful to the board members to have a copy of that book as well. Not that we're going to be involved in it, but at least we're up to speed. If a parent asks us, we can say, gee, you need to ask your principal, but in the meantime, let me read to you what I have here, and then ask him or her for specifics. Would that work, you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is a document that's a work in progress. We have a project manager that is actually focused on our return to school task force work, and she has been meeting with every one of our small teams and gathering their information, having them put together the plans into this format. And so we're probably, I'm just going to venture a guess, 2 weeks away from our final first draft of that as the school year approaches quickly. And so we'll find the right time to share the right draft with the board.
No problem. Yeah, I wasn't looking for any kind of a approval status. It's just the idea that so we're aware of it as we're going along, and knowing that there's going to be updates, there's going to be changes, there's going to be glitches, and we have to adjust. But it just keeps us informed. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Director Sage and then Director Carlson.
Thank you for this information. It gives us an outline of what you're working on and how you are putting in supports to ensure equity for students. My question is, how do parents know that you're working on these supports? How do parents know all of these components to equity and racial justice are actually being worked on right now? Because from what I'm hearing from the community, people aren't sure how these things are being addressed and how these supports, or if they're really being addressed.
Yeah, I think one of the ways that we're doing that is we communicate on a weekly basis with the community around the work of reopening schools in the fall. One of the tensions that we find in that communication is how much information is the right amount of information versus too much information for any one person to consume. And so we've been trying to be thoughtful as we move through the process to provide the right level of information while not overwhelming. As conditions change, like you saw last week, it really had to be about the decision tree given the nature of that information, and so that's why we decided to put that out along with some other information for families as we're continuing to plan. But we will continue to embed this information into our communications over through August.
I would encourage you to go ahead and overburden some of the readers and let them know what it is that you're working on that is going to help students make that transition to school a safe one and a welcoming one for them.
Great.
Dr. Carlson, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you to the team here. It's a lot of interesting points, but the most interesting components here are the activity levels. These definitions of high, moderate, and low, if I'm interpreting them correctly, are coming out from OSPI, which is fantastic news. Because I would hate to have us operating under one set of assumptions and have our neighbors operating on a different set of assumptions. And I just wanted to comment as an epidemiologist on this high, moderate, low. These definitions they're very empiric and they're appropriate. At high levels, as they've defined it, if we reopened the schools in person, it would act as a feedback loop, and the schools would make the society around us have an even worse outbreak. When you get down to low levels, then theoretically, if you've got under control in the community and it's coming down, opening the schools shouldn't exacerbate that. So this is really good news that they're providing meaningful guidance to us, and I'm very pleased to see where you're taking it. And I do appreciate the fact that so far it's not, at the moment they've asked you for a high tour, more of a framework than a fully fleshed out plan. But I agree with, I think it was Mark was asking, release the drafts as they come along so that the community and the board can see where we're at. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think the other piece to that point, Chris, is that the transmission rate is one set of data to look at. The other sets of data are how much testing is available, what's the turnaround time on testing, because if we plug kids back in, but then it takes 5 days to turn around a test, you're just pulling kids in and out of school because of a single potential case and whatnot. So there's a lot of different categories that we're going to have to evaluate as we go through this. And I think my commitment is to continue to be transparent with the community around our thinking as we move forward.
And so I just wanted to ask one more sort of nitty-gritty detail. It looked like there's going to be a back-to-school plan and a safety plan. They're two separate documents. Is that the case? Is that correct?
So the safety plan, and Matt will talk a little bit further about that in our Return to School Task Force update. And really what that does is it outlines specifically roles and responsibilities for the required safety protocols that we have to have in place. So it's more of a complementary document to put it all in one place, knowing that our schools will have kids on some of our campuses starting day one. And we're required to have that, whether there's one student on campus or a few hundred students. And so that's why we were thinking about it as a separate document. And the team that worked on that really was the health and safety team. And so that's why it's a complementary document to our overall guidebook.
Excellent. Thanks.
Director Stewart, I saw your hand go back up.
Yes, it did. I appreciate the fact that you don't want to overwhelm parents with a lot of material, and there is a lot of material. I'm sure it will be. May I suggest that as each edition, if you will, as opposed to, I'm not sure I'd call it a draft, but as each iteration of it comes out, that you have a half-page executive summary, as it were, or a parent summary, and then give the rest of the report there. That way, if a parent has a desire and has the need to look at every page, then so be it. The ones who are frazzled and have no time, the executive summary will have to do until their friends can say, hey, did you see page 46? I just think that it's a very common practice in corporate America, and I think it'd be a great practice for us just to have even if it's an outline, if you will, just so they understand that here's what the elements are in here, and if they're looking for a specific item it's highlighted, whether it's special needs, whether it's equity, whether it's changing curriculum, broader curriculum for Black studies, African American studies, then they know it. They can go look for it. Let them decide how much or how little they want to read, I think, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Director Beliesner, did you have another question? Or
I was going to make a motion to approve Resolution 2299.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Director Beliesner and seconded by Director Stewart that we adopt Resolution 2299 entitled Reopening School Fall 2020 as presented. All those in favor? Well, I guess before I go any further, are there any additional comments or questions?
I would just like to, if I may, say thank you for the broad framework as that lays out and puts forward some of the clear values in which that's going forward. I think that helps to guide the work. We recognize that there's a lot going on and the need to get that finalized into the details. So I do think this provides the framework in which to make sure. I think we are all as a board focused on, and we heard it a lot through public comment tonight, the equity component and how do we do. What I heard tonight a lot was about our students. I'd like to be thinking we're also dealing with how our staff and administration as well as the board is thinking through what impacts do we have and what do we need to do during this time frame in order to really ensure those changes take place and that follows through. So I'm in support completely of the resolution, and thank you for all that work, but that is still a piece I think that's there that we need to address.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Okay, so again, it is moved by Director Beliesner and seconded by Director Stewart that we adopt Resolution 2299 entitled Reopening School Fall 2020 as presented. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. So then, Dr. Holman, the last item on our agenda is an update on the Return to School Task Force. So please continue your presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. And so tonight we have two distinct pieces that we want to discuss with the board. First is around health and safety, and Associate Superintendent Matt Gillingham will present about that. And then the board had asked for information about really the parent and student experience in classroom teams. And so as we have been preparing information for our community, Sally asked her team to package it for the board tonight. And so they do have an actual video to show you tonight, something that is a preview of something that we're preparing to put out to the community as part of a professional learning and training that we know families and students will benefit from as we move into remote learning. And so with that, I'm going to hand this off to Matt to provide an update on health and safety.
Thank you, Dr. Holman. All right, I'm going to share my screen. I have a brief slide deck. All right, and so we've talked a little bit already about kind of the genesis of the COVID-19 safety plan. I have Scott Emery here joining us today as well. He's our Director of Risk and Safety Services. And he's been leading up the team that's been working throughout the summer to go through all of the guidance from OSPI, Department of Health, Labor and Industries, et cetera, to try to make sense of that and to pull that together in a consolidated playbook for us. And so may have him address some questions if the board has any that I'm unable to address directly. As Dr. Holman talked about, we have pulled all of the guidance and directions and tools into a single playbook for our building administrators. Scott did a great job last week of briefing all of our building administrators on the safety plan, their responsibilities, and has actually they're already engaged in doing work to begin implementing the plan. And then Scott's and his team are following up with building administrators to ensure that core pieces that need to be in place prior to the start of the school year are in place. Because as Dr. Holman mentioned, we expect to have some staff and some students back in our buildings from day one. And so we want to ensure that we're doing everything possible to be thinking about and taking care of the people within our care. This safety plan is currently about 50 pages long. It is a living document because we continue to get new guidance and build out additional tools. So there's really three big concepts that I think are important for the board to be aware of as we just to kind of highlight how we're thinking about health and safety. And so one of those is that there are multiple layers to health and safety, and any one one item, one practice might mitigate some of the risk, but taken in totality, working together, that's where we start to drive down the risk of spread of COVID-19. And so everything from the personal health and hygiene, so in terms of people staying home when they're not feeling well or if they've been exposed to somebody that has COVID-19, hand washing, face coverings, staying 6 feet apart. This team has worked really closely with our support services team to think about all the cleaning protocols and to make sure we understand what's best practice and what's the guidance and recommendations around that. We have a full attestation and screening process that will be in place, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. What type of personal protective equipment is needed based on the task that an employee is engaged in, For most of us who are coming back in a school setting, a cloth mask is going to be sufficient. But we do have some roles where additional personal protective equipment is going to be appropriate or required. And so we've developed a protocol for how building administrators can work with their staff to determine the right level of equipment. And then workplace procedures. So kind of what are all the protocols for how we want to be addressing everything. So we're not resting, thinking about our health and safety and on any one item. It's that they're working together to try to create the safest place that we can. One of the things when we think about providing guidance as to what to do is we have to also figure out how do we operationalize that so that at each building that guidance is translated in the context of that school environment in such a way that it's meeting both the letter and the intent of that guidance or expectation. So we're relying on an incident command structure. This is a structure that our building administrators are trained in and are used to using because it's the structure we use for all of our emergency planning and emergency response. And so given that a pandemic is an emergency and we're working in a very different kind of environment, the incident command structure gives us a really kind of clear way of thinking about how do we are we clear on the responsibilities and how we ensure that each of those responsibilities has somebody that's assigned to them to ensure that they are being done. And so we have 7 different roles in our incident command chart. We have a COVID supervisor. That's actually a requirement of any work site in the state of Washington is that all job sites are to have a COVID supervisor, and our schools are no exception. So typically this would be the building principal or an associate principal, but it should be an administrator who's ensuring that every aspect of our safety plan is being implemented. From there are duties that can be delegated to different coordinators. So as you saw in the previous slide, some mock-ups of some of the signage and that will need to be at each building. And so we want to make sure that we have somebody who's looking for the signage, ensuring that it's meeting the expectations that we've laid out, and is able to communicate and order additional signage as necessary for that particular environment, and then monitoring to ensure that the signage is continue to be used. Our security coordinators, one of the things that we've ordered is ways of marking, keeping physical distancing of 6 feet. So when we're thinking about where students may need to queue up, how do we ensure that we've set up a layout that helps to support physical distancing? Our medical coordinators really be thinking about how do we ensure that we have an appropriate space to remove student or staff members should they not be feeling well, and is able to go through all the protocols for responding to when we have somebody that might has a suspected some symptoms of COVID-19. Our attestation and screening coordinator, this is the person that is going to is in charge of ensuring that every person who comes into one of our school buildings attests that they are free of symptoms and certain conditions that would place them at risk for COVID-19, and they do not have a temperature. And so for staff, that's going to be a self-attestation process. For students, we're going to start the year by sending paper home to families in their home language so that it's accessible, and ask them on a daily basis for students to bring that paper back to answer questions. If they don't, we will ask the questions of the student or their parent or guardian, and we'll be taking temperatures for every student as they come to the door. So That's a really important piece for us to ensure that if students are coming into our classroom, so that they aren't knowingly coming where they already are exhibiting symptoms. So that's a role where we want somebody that's really focused on that. Our custodial coordinator, we've been working all summer on appropriate custodial protocols to ensure that we're cleaning, and we've got response teams in place should we need to do deep cleanings. And then our PPE coordinator, one of the things we did this spring is we centralized, we pulled back all of our personal protective equipment that was at various school sites so we could inventory it and ensure that we had the right amount. We determined what additional PPE we would need, and we've been ordering that equipment throughout the summer. And our PPE coordinators are in charge of ensuring that the right people at their schools get that information, those materials, and that they're staying in touch with our emergency operations center so that as supplies run low, that we're able to get schools the supplies that they need, and that we're able to, as a district, monitor the levels that we have so we can order additional PPE as needed with enough lead time. Our safety plan also has very specific protocols. So we have protocols around cloth face coverings and when those face coverings need to be worn, and when and under what circumstances they could be taken off. How building administrators can work with their employees around determining the right type of PPE for specific tasks that they're engaged in. I've already talked a little bit about the attestation and screening process, but we have a number of pages and documents that spell out in detail how schools should set up for that process. We have protocols set up for how we're going to respond when somebody presents with symptoms, and how we're going to respond and help support Department of Health and contact tracing on positive cases, and some additional guidance for schools, particularly as this August, we know we need to get students and families their laptops and some other items at the beginning of the school year. So how do schools think about and appropriately structure those sorts of events so that they're low-risk activities and consistent with the County Department of Health guidance. So there's been a lot of work that Scott and his team and have done over the summer to pull together and try to make sense of all of this. And we'll be finalizing a couple of items over the next few days. But all of our building administrators do have this in their hands and are beginning to work on translating this into the context of their buildings.
See, Eric, do you want to take questions now on this content, or do you want to wait until after Sally has finished her piece?
That's probably a good idea. Let's take questions on this content now. Mark, I saw your hand went up first.
Thank you. Matt, I'm not entirely clear. I know that there's a certain population of the students that will be having in-person classes. Does this mean every school? So if you have resource rooms in each of the schools, that they will be open to the special ed students as opposed to being shipped to a different school with a different teacher. Is that correct?
I'd actually have to refer that question, I think, to Mike regarding placement of special education students.
You know, I can probably speak to some of that, and then Mike, you can fill in the gaps if I miss anything. At this point, there are no students that are being transitioned or transferred to a different location or different school from their previously assigned location or school. And so, Mike, if that is not accurate, please let us know.
That's correct, John. That's our plan right now.
Well, that's what I was assuming, but I wanted to hear it to make sure I just wasn't thinking I had heard it in my dreams or something. So each of the schools, wherever the students are in the transition program, pretty much all their day, they will be then in their individual schools with paras and their teachers, correct?
Well, yeah, this is really in regards to so as we think about the entire school year, there are no students that are being transferred to a different location. And so that is true for transition students, resource students in the special education programs, general education students, Quest. And so as of right now, it is status quo for school assignments.
Okay, but the in-person students would be your special needs students.
Correct. That is the work that's going on right now with our LOU negotiations. Yes.
Right. I understand it's all subject to LOU, but okay. Thanks, sir.
Director Leisner and then Director Carlson. Sorry, Chris, if I went out of order.
Go ahead, let Chris go first.
Okay.
Oh, well, I was just going, mine's a relatively simple question. Matt, I think I heard you say, and I just want to confirm, that it's not as if we're inventing these whole cloth, but really you're trying to find something that fits within the guidelines that are being provided by public health. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've been working with guidance from the State Department of Health, King County, Seattle Department of Health, Public Health, the Department of Labor and Industries, CDC guidance, and guidance from OSPI. And so, these are not, we're not creating anything. We're making sense of it and translating it in the context of our school district and figuring out how to implement. So like, for example, there are a lot of technological ways we could do attestations, and we may look at that, or we will look at that over the course of the kind of the early fall. Our technology operations team right now is working to ensure that we have devices ready for students in a remote setting, and we really want to ensure that we're thinking about any tools that we use, we do it in a way that it's accessible. And so that's where, to a certain extent, districts have some latitude, but the expectations are we are screening and we're screening students every day.
All right, thank you.
I think the other point that Matt made during his presentation was we're taking all of this guidance and then putting it into a structure that all of our schools already understand. So our incident command structure, it is language and thinking that our building administrators are used to, because that's how they think about emergency preparedness right now. And so this is a framework that is really helpful for them to build it into. So kudos to the team for thinking of that as the delivery method to our schools, so they don't have to relearn kind of an organizational system or thinking.
All right, so I guess it's my turn. So thank you. That is an impressive safety plan as you're putting together. That's a lot of information to bring forward, and having a solid document to be able to work from, I think, will be huge. And utilizing, as Dr. Holman was saying, the incident command structure as emergency management is a great way. I had two questions. I appreciate the fact that you mentioned the technology around screening for a couple of reasons. I just think handling paper with a lot of kids over time, and even as a family person, I would be lousy with it, and I would never send it with my kid. So knowing if we have one-to-one and we have that capacity, being able to build that skill, it also then gives us access to data on a large scale to be able to pay attention to different things that might be happening from a symptom side. So I think there's some value behind that as well. So I would highly encourage our pushing for that, but totally understand the limitation that staff would have in regards to be able to do that. The one thing I didn't hear, and there's been talk of this, is HVAC. And how is the environment within our schools and that component? Have we been looking at that at all? Has that fallen in a different place? I just know that's a question. I hear it in the work I do. So I guess that's one of them. I went on a long time. Sorry, Matt.
No, I can track multiple questions. Thanks. So I think, first of all, with the screening, any system, one of the things we are prepared and will need to be prepared for students not showing up with, however, whether it's digital or in person. And we definitely are going to be looking at the technological solutions and looking at, there's other things in terms of to what extent do solutions actually protect the privacy of the people that are submitting, and looking at, you know, how does this work, the interoperability with our existing systems, the level of support. And so it's not that we're not going to look at it, it's just we want to also make sure that if we were to adopt a technological solution, that we're really thoughtful about that before we bring something into our system. And we'll be looking to see, as well as early on, how these protocols play out on a smaller scale, because as part, our goal is to eventually get to a point, right, where we can be bringing more and more students back. And so we may continue, and we're expecting that we will have to adapt and think about scalability. And so some systems that might work early on may not have that scalability. And so that'll be something we're going to be paying attention to early on. We got to think about how long does it take per student to get students in the door, because as we start to think about bringing back hundreds of students, there's implications, and we want to make sure that we're not doing anything that cuts corners or jeopardizes the health. So so there's a lot for us to be thinking about as we scale up and looking at what are the best ways to do that. I can't speak, so our support services, Barbara might be able to speak a little bit more in depth about this, but our executive director of support services has given multiple presentations over the past week to our administrators, talking about some of the changes that they're making in ventilation, or HVAC system, and looking at filters and airflow, so that they're also on that side, looking at incorporating the guidance and best practices into our facilities. And again, that's part of the layer of support, is what are we doing in facilities. And so I don't know if Barbara wants to chime in with anything else, or that was
earlier today, Barbara was able to pull up a slide within about 15 seconds that provided the information that Director Bleasner was looking for. So I don't know if you want to share that slide, Barbara, to answer this question, or just speak to it.
I can do both if you would like me to. So yeah, we have a slide. Oh shoot, and then here, let me see. The minute I hit my presentation, it took away my screen. Okay, I think I am sharing it. And so this is, a summary that we shared with our building administrators. And so we are, Brian Buck, our Executive Director of Support Services, is working with our ventilation team and our HVAC contractor. We are putting a plan together in alignment with ASHRAE recommendations. That's the national national guidelines regarding HVAC. We are maximizing our outside air ventilation. So we're setting all of our we're extending the run times in our buildings. So there'll be additional 2 hours before and after school to bring in outside air. Now, what that does do is it makes on cold days, buildings might be colder. On warm days, buildings might be warmer due to the bringing in the outside air. We're also installing additional filters where feasible, or MERV 13 filters where feasible. Not all places where we have filters can take these MERV 13 filters. We've got negative air pressure in our health rooms and our bathrooms, so they continue to exhaust. What that really means is there's an exhaust pulling air from those rooms on a constant basis. We're flushing all water lines before occupancy. We have a case response plan both on our custodial side and our facility side. If there is a case, if we have to bring in extra cleaning, we will also maximize the outside air during that cleaning. So that is just a quick slide that we have available. So
that's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I assumed it was being addressed, just hadn't heard it. The only one other piece is you talk about the contact and tracing and some of the the work and discussion we've had with board directors is really how to define those roles and responsibilities well with the Department of Health and with the school district. So appreciate any clarity you can provide within that document and making sure that that's set up beforehand and that those roles are clear for who's an exposure, who isn't, who needs to be quarantined, who needs to be isolated, and ensuring testing is aligned and accessible. So those are all things that, I know that they aren't completely in your hand, it's partnering. But the more we define that clearly up front, I think the better it will be, and that we can maintain our schools' consistency, because it's the flip-flopping that will be the challenge as you have to move in and out. And that's what happened back in March, I keep thinking, when we had schools closing for 3 days and then opening. And so the more we can define and align with our surrounding districts as well with that approach, the better we'll be.
Yes. Agreed. There's details in terms of what differentiating when folks are self-quarantining because they've might have been exposed to somebody, but that from a confirmed positive cases, and working with the Department of Health and working through those. So agreed, and I know Scott and his team have been setting up. One of the things that we'll be doing is we're actually going to reconstitute our emergency operations center and have that just open from day one. And so that we have a team that is ready to be very nimble and helping us respond. And that also hopefully will create more time for us in being able to determine what action is appropriate on a given site. And so we're going to be opening that way rather than waiting and then assembling that team.
All good things. And let's get community transmission down, and then it will be a little easier as well. Thank you.
Director Stays, did you have a question?
I was just going to add to what Siri was saying. I don't think public health has the capacity, given that they only have one testing site at a high school, Rainier Beach. They don't have the capacity to help schools when it comes to testing and contact tracing. So I appreciate all thoughts on partnerships and how we can make this work.
Director Stewart, your hand is raised. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. And maybe I'm just not, maybe it's coming up, to be quite frank. So if it is, just tell me and I'll wait. Transportation for the kids who are going to be in building. Since we're talking primarily about the special needs kids, what arrangements are we making? I know that a lot of the kids, I won't say a lot, a good percentage of the kids come in through contractors like ALS. And so I just want to check on that. Also, the kids who are getting pull out and push in services, how is that going to be handled? Because I realize that's a kind of a different ball of wax, and so I wanted to ask about that too.
And Mark, that's I will address the services piece in my superintendent's report, really talking about scheduling and why today there wasn't communication around schedules. I think that's important for the board to understand and also the community. In terms of transportation, when I'm trying to think of the process that transportation needs to have happen in order for them to actually start routing, but they will get the names of students here in the next week or so that will be attending school in person, and then they'll work with the team to figure out what's the right distribution of students on buses. And knowing that we have additional space on buses right now, we also want to practice distancing to the greatest extent possible on our buses. And so it's thinking about transportation a little bit differently, knowing that we're not going to be transporting 10,000 students daily, and so that gives us a little bit more flexibility.
Sure. No, I just wanted to make sure I remembered to ask, even if I was jumping the gun here, because I've got those questions from several parents already, so I thought I'd ask. Thank you.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board on this topic? Okay. Dr. Holman, I think there's more to the presentation. Is that right?
Yeah. So the next portion of our Return to School Task Force update is focused on the parent and student experience in classroom teams. And so I see Sally has turned her camera on. I see she has a few of her team members here with her tonight to provide you with an update. And really, this is a video that they want to share with you. And so, Sally, if you have any comments prior to sharing the video, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mindy and Keel, could you just turn on your video real quick so we can put a face with the name?
Yeah.
Mindy Mallon is our Director of Technology Integration, and Keel Smith is our project manager for district-wide teams adoption. And together, when we heard that, the board would like to see a demo of what parents and students see, we took it a step further, and together with our teams, several people created a narrated family and guardian guide for working in classroom teams. And we just asked Keel to package it in a video about 10 minutes before this meeting. So I'm going to have Keel share his screen and go ahead and play the video.
It'd be my pleasure.
Thank you.
This is the Lake Washington School District Family and Guardian Guide to Microsoft Classroom Teams. Everything your student needs to know to get started with online learning. Dear families and guardians, we want you to know that we hear you. Your involvement in your student's education is more important than ever. On top of juggling work and personal responsibilities and ensuring that your family stays safe and healthy, you're now assisting in remote learning. You have a lot on your plate. Lake Washington School District is committed to education in this remote environment. This guide will cover how to set up and get started using Microsoft Classroom Teams so that your student can continue learning and connecting with their teacher and class. The adoption of Microsoft Classroom Teams aligns with our mission to ensure that all Lake Washington School District students are future ready. This presentation will cover 4 main areas. In Chapter 1, we'll talk about 2 ways that your student can access their classroom teams. Chapter 2 will cover ways in which you can help support your student. Chapter 3 will talk about family and guardian communication. Our final chapter will cover some tips and tricks to help your student with easy troubleshooting. If you're using the PowerPoint version of this presentation, feel free to click a link on this page to jump to that topic. If you're watching a video of this presentation, feel free to fast forward to your area of interest. There are 2 ways your student can access their classroom teams. First, we'll look at how they can sign into Teams online. They just need to type teams.microsoft.com into the address bar of their internet browser and sign in when prompted. If they're signing in for the first time, have your student type their LWSD email address into the first sign-in screen. They will then be prompted to enter their LWSD password on the next screen. Once logged in, your student is now ready to use Teams online. Classroom Teams can also be accessed through the Teams desktop app that is available on every district-issued device. If your student prefers to use the desktop app, just have them double-click the Teams app icon from their list of applications. Have them enter their LWSD student login and password if prompted to do so. Then, they're all set. Let's cover some ways in which you can support your students as they use Teams. The first of which is how they will access their classroom teams. Once Teams opens, your student will see their available classroom teams arranged as tiles. They can access any classroom team by simply clicking the tile associated with the class. Please note that the number of teams may differ per student based upon their unique needs and/or grade level. After the classroom team is selected, your student will see channels that the teacher has created. These might be subjects, units, or other labels. Microsoft Classroom Teams and Microsoft OneNote make a perfect pair. Every classroom team comes with an integrated class notebook that can be accessed by your student within Teams. On the general channel of every classroom team, there's a class notebook tab where your student will be able to access their class notebook and personalized section associated with that classroom team. Classroom Teams allows teachers to create assignments for students to view, add their work, and then turn in. Assignments can be viewed and submitted many ways on Teams. Let's cover some common options that students have for completing assignments. To view all assignments for a classroom team, students can go to the general channel of that team and select the Assignments tab. From there, they can choose a specific assignment. If your student needs to upload their work, they can select the little paperclip icon to add their work to the assignment. Students can upload work from many sources, like from their OneDrive, from their device's hard drive, an existing file within Teams, or they can create a new file to work on right within the Upload menu. In this example, let's have our student upload a file from their device by clicking Upload from this device. This would be an existing file that is already saved to their computer. Navigate to the file's location on the computer and click Open. Once Teams indicates that the file has successfully uploaded, click Done. And now there's just one more step, and it's a fun one. Now that all their work has been submitted, your student must click the Turn In button to indicate to their teacher that they have officially submitted their assignment. This will trigger a fun randomized animation to let the student know that they've successfully turned in their assignment. Could turning in assignments be more fun? Now we'll talk about how your student will be participating in virtual meetings with their teachers and classmates. When your students attend their virtual classroom Teams meetings, they can customize their experience with video and microphone settings as needed. To join a meeting, your student can click on the calendar to the left side of the Teams window and select the scheduled meeting from the calendar. Click the Join button in the upper right-hand corner to launch the meeting window. Before entering the meeting, your student can select to turn their camera and microphone off before clicking Join Now. When joining the meeting, your student might enter a virtual lobby where they will wait until the teacher starts the meeting and admits students who are waiting. Let's touch briefly on the Grades tab. Your student can use the Grades tab to check on assignment status with an easy-to-read quick view list. The Grades tab is located on the general channel of every classroom team. While the Grades tab does connect to assignments and may show points and scores, Skyward will still be the most accurate source for grade reporting for LWSD students and teachers. Family and guardian communication about classroom Teams activity will be sent out in two ways. The first of which is the weekly Guardian Digest. Guardians will automatically receive a weekly Guardian Digest via email that outlines the classroom Teams assignments your student turned in that week, assignments that are still pending, and assignments that are due the following week. These are sent out every Sunday to the Guardian email we have on file in Skyward and are automated per registered student. Here's an example of what the Guardian Digest looks like on a tablet. Another way in which guardians can be aware of what's going on in their student's class is by accessing the content library of the class notebook. Families and guardians can access the content library of the class notebook whenever they choose by clicking a special link shared by the teacher at the beginning of the term. Teachers will use the content library to provide up-to-date information and content related to their class. Next, we'll cover some questions that may come up, as well as a few troubleshooting techniques to help support your student. What if your student's login isn't working? This error message could display for a couple of reasons. It could be that the login information that was typed may not be accurate, or there might be some other issue with your student's account. If you verified that the login ID and passwords are correct, please have your student contact their teacher or family helpline with questions. What if your student can't find their classroom Teams during setup, or there are no classroom Teams present? If your student does not see their class or classes after logging in, the teacher may not have activated the team yet. If you feel that this is an error, please let the teacher know so that they can take the necessary action. What if your student's assignments are missing? In this case, it could be that there are not any assignments assigned to your student. If they don't see any assignments but feel that they should, Have your student email the teacher. What if you have more than one student that want to use the same district device? Each student can log into their own Teams account with their unique username and password. When one student is done with their Teams work, click on their icon in the top right corner and select Sign Out. The next student can then log in. What can you do if your student is experiencing low internet bandwidth? Teams can still be used when internet bandwidth is low. It will work to reduce the amount of video streams automatically. Another tip is to try limiting video usage during live class sessions. Have your student turn off their camera while in the meeting and only use the camera when they are called upon to do so. You can also turn off incoming video when bandwidth is low. Have your student click on the More Options ellipsis during the meeting and select Turn off incoming video. Here are some common audio troubleshooting tips. If people in a meeting can't hear your student, they might be muted, or the microphone setting might be incorrect. Have your student click the microphone icon to turn the mute button on or off. Your student can change their speaker or microphone settings in a meeting by selecting the More Options ellipsis from the toolbar and clicking Device Settings. Your student can then select the speaker and microphone they wish to use from the Audio Device drop-down menus. Lake Washington School District does have some resources to help our families with technology-related issues. You can contact our skilled technology specialists by sending an email to ftaccess@lwsd.org. That's F as in Frank, T as in Tom, access@lwsd.org. Or you can call our Parent and Student Support Helpline at area code 425-936-1322. You can also access Microsoft-specific support resources at support.microsoft.com.
So thank you, Keel. And I neglected to mention that Keel is actually the narrator. We're lucky to have his skill set with us at Lake Washington School District.
Thank you, Sally.
I think another thing to point out, Sally, is Keel really was primary in the launching of Microsoft Teams for administrator to administrator use, about a year ago, if I remember correctly. And so he's been our content expert in this space for about a year and has been tremendously helpful in the spring when we transitioned so many teachers to the Teams environment for their own collaboration, when they used it with students, and now as we're moving to Classroom Teams as our learning management system for all students. So thank you for that. Thank you for that video. It's great to see that coming together. And Sally, if I remember correctly, that is one of the videos that will also have voiceover in different languages, something you'll work with Shannon and her team in communications around, correct?
Yes, and we may chunk it into smaller bits so it's not too long, but people can scroll back and forth in it now.
Right. Thank you.
Quick follow-up question on that. So my understanding is that this is going to be at some point delivered to families, this video. And when are we thinking of doing that?
So the plan would be to get it out to the parents prior to the start of the school year. So we are anticipating that team sites would be launched at the very end of August, meaning that students actually get notification that they have a team site for their class. And so our goal would be to do that shortly beforehand, so parents have it at the same time.
Excellent. Thank you. Director Stewart, I saw your hand went up.
Yes, may I suggest that this, by the way, Keel, this is an excellent presentation. I like the simplicity of the way it was described. To be quite frank, the more simple for some of us, the better, especially me. But my point is, I would love to see that brief presentation be available for us to share on various Facebook pages so people will know that it's coming and their anxiety level will go down at least 1 or 2 notches. Because I think it'll help alleviate those people who had all sorts of bad experiences during the spring, realizing, okay, we saw the problems, we're working on it, we got a plan in place, you'll get the materials towards the end of August, but here's a little snippet of what you're getting. So if we could have that available to us, I'd appreciate it.
Like a little trailer of the motion picture that's coming later in August.
Yes, but basically what the presentation that Keel just made right now, that would be a perfect trailer for what people are going to. They'll give them enough detail to whet their appetite, but not enough that you won't be doubling up what you're doing.
Yeah, and I know the team is still packaging even what you just saw tonight, and I believe that was finalized, I believe, at 4:50 this evening.
Well, the other thing is too, and we can even put a caveat on it, this is subject to change and update.
Yes.
Or, something to that effect. It's just, to be quite frank, it alleviated a lot of anxieties that I know that a lot of parents that have been hammering on me have had, and I'm sure that a lot of folks out there that are listening in are bringing a sigh of relief. And I'd just like to be able to spread that out as far as possible for those folks that don't normally tune in, although we're getting a bigger and bigger audience each meeting.
Director Bleasner, your hand went up.
It did. I just want to say thank you for putting together the video and letting us have the chance to see it. It's when we speak about it, it's one thing, it's another to actually have the opportunity to see how it will play out and sort of brings all those things together. So appreciate your taking that time and bringing it forward. And looking forward to all the different changes that will come as this goes. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Director Sage?
I also am impressed that we will be able to offer this in other languages, utilizing the service that we were apparently contracting with. I think this will be helpful. We might have to stop every once in a while and then rewind. I know I'm going to, but at least it's available and it's there for us to do that.
Yeah. Well, more to come on it. We're working on improvements every second, and Mindy is rolling out the training for our administrators tomorrow, so they'll see, what the parents will see, and then what the teachers will also see.
And we also got to see the thrill of turning assignments in, as shown and voiced by Keel on the video.
Yeah. The excitement was palpable.
Yeah. Excellent. Dr. Holman, is there more of an update for the Return to School Task Force tonight?
That is the conclusion of our report this evening.
Great. Okay, thank you, everyone. The next item on our agenda is, Dr. Holman, do you have a superintendent report?
I do. And I mentioned this briefly earlier when Vice President Stewart was asking a question about some of the scheduling things. And I just wanted to put some context to this overall situation. We had a target date set of August 10th to be able to provide an overview to our families that their students receive special services. And so we aren't able to follow through with that because when you think about the task of negotiating the working conditions given our current environment that we're in, it took there were two distinct groups working on the letter of understanding. One was more of a general group, and I think I heard today that we spent somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 55 hours working on that negotiation process. Shannon Hitch and her team worked with another set of staff specific to special education and the programs and services and the working conditions related to that. I also want to put context around how we do that work with LWEA. We use what's called an interest-based bargaining process, where we actually start the process by saying, what are the interests that we have, and what interests do we actually share together as a group? Because that really helps frame the entire and overall work and effort. One of the things that we also did was we started every bargaining session with a conversation around racial equity. It really helped to ground the entire team, all of the administrators, all of the teachers, all of the leadership from Lake Washington Education Association, grounded us in the support for our students that are furthest from educational justice and students that have been historically marginalized by our system. And so that was really a framework that really helped us as we walk through so many details of the working conditions to reopen school in this environment, it really helped us to make some different decisions around the working conditions and the information that is in the letter of understanding that may have been different had we not had that equity lens as part of the process. And so we had target dates set, and we are glad that we believe we are really close and we'll be able to communicate with our families by the end of this week, because we have gotten to that point where there's just a few final details to get squared away. And so our intent never was to get to this point and not follow through with our community, but we also know that taking the right amount of time with these processes is important, and spending a couple of extra sessions with our LWEA negotiating team to really finalize this so that we all felt comfortable moving forward was really important. And so with that, we will be moving forward with communication later this week so that people have that update that we had promised for today, aren't able to deliver, but wanted to be transparent as to why. And it truly was a collaboration with LWEA, and we are so fortunate to have them as partners as we work through all of this, knowing that every district is dealing with this right now, and we're fortunate to have partners that we do in LWEA. And so with that, that's my superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Holman. I appreciate that update and look forward to hearing more later this week. Okay, the next item on our agenda tonight is board member comments. I will wait for hands to see who has comments tonight. Director Sage, you popped up on the screen first. I don't know. Do you have a comment for tonight or something you'd like to, an update you'd like to provide?
I have a report. Would you like a comment instead? I'll comment on the report.
Okay, excellent.
Okay. As the legislative representative for the board, I have been meeting with some area legislators and also some who are not actually in our district but are on committees in the legislature that directly affect education, to let them know what our district is looking at as far as additional costs related to COVID-19. There's the obvious costs of PPE and all the disinfectant and hiring additional janitors to get the work done right. But there's also the cost of being closed and remote learning and professional development. And, you know, eventually we probably would have gotten a remote learning plan, but we put it together and it costs money, and it costs money up front right away. So just trying to get the legislators to understand what our district in particular is looking at and concerned about, and even some of our triumphs. I'll let them know about this video Teams instruction now. They'll like that. One of the other things we discussed was transportation and the need to be able to be flexible and provide transportation as we reopen, and trying to keep funding available for transportation and all of the needs that go with that. So that is my report to date. I've met with Representative Springer, Representative Wallen, and Senator Mullet so far.
Excellent. Thank you for the report and for taking a leadership role in that. Any other board member comments for tonight? Director Stewart? Director Stewart, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I'd like to, again, commend the staff for the work they're doing. It's, as I mentioned earlier on the comments section, it's like trying to move the Rockies into the Midwest. And I think that they've done an excellent job of that. I would like to encourage everyone to, when you're giving updates to families, to give as much as possible and keep away from too much esoteria. My problem is that you're getting a lot of parents who are saying, okay, I've heard this message before. And again, when you give a detail saying, look, this is all subject to change. We're trying our best to get this up to you as fast as possible. It's going to go down to the wire, and bear with us. Be as honest as you have the ability to be so. It's a matter of, if you don't know the answer, then say, we don't know the answer yet. That's fair. Parents will understand that and appreciate it, I think. So that's my comments.
Any other board member comments for tonight? Okay, I have one thing to add. Camera on. I really appreciate all the public comment we've received for the last 2 months, really, on equity and inclusion work in our district. And I recognize that there's a lot of interest in the community for the district and the board to move quickly to make changes to address issues of systemic racism in our schools. And as a board member, I feel that too. But I also know that it's important that we are thoughtful and that we work about this in a smart way. And this is not an issue that has a technical solution. And it will require working with our stakeholders and proactively engaging with the community. It's not something that the board can just on its own unilaterally decide how to solve these issues. So that work is ongoing and is going to be moving forward tonight. Following this, the board is having a study session in which we're going to be discussing our work plan for the upcoming year, and that work plan will include equity work. So that study session will be broadcast just as this meeting will. So if you're tuning in now and want to continue watching that, we'll probably take a small break and then continue with that. Dr. Holman, your hand went up when I was talking.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments around really the comments that we've heard from the public over the last 2 months. You as a board have received them in public comment. As staff, we've also received emails and had conversations with community. I plan at our next board meeting for my superintendent's report to provide an update related to the equity work in our school district, provide some visuals that I did share with our district leadership team this last week, talk about some of the work that really is ongoing and really outline our commitment to this work moving forward in everything that we're doing. So just so the board knows that is something that I'll be bringing at our next meeting.
Dr. Holman, an idea, I think, just so it's clear to the community that we'll be discussing that, perhaps we make make that report an agenda item on its own, just so it doesn't just show up as superintendent report, that it's for those interested, it's clear that that's something that will be discussed.
Absolutely.
Okay, excellent. Okay, any other board member comments for tonight? Okay. Here. So I just want to note that board meetings in September may be adjusted pending changes in the governor's orders regarding open public meetings. Information will be updated on the district's website as soon as this information is known. At this time, the next board meeting is scheduled to be held on August 24th. I have in my notes that that's occurring in person, but my understanding is has that already been shifted, or is that something that we're anticipating will be?
And so we are remote through August, and so that meeting will also be in this format. Okay.
So for those tuning in, we will continue broadcasting our meetings in this format. Okay. I will now entertain, we've reached the end of our agenda, so I will now entertain a motion to adjourn the August 10 board meeting.
So moved.
So moved.
I'll take that as a second. It has been moved by Director Carlson and seconded by Director Stewart that we adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, hearing none, the motion carries and the meeting is adjourned. Board members, it is 7:15. We have a study session that follows. I recommend we take a break to recharge. Maybe is everyone okay with starting at 7:30?
Good.
Yes.
Do we have a separate login for that, or we just come back to this meeting?
Yes, separate login.
Okay.
Yes, there's a separate login. For those viewing, you can view from home in the same way that you're viewing this now. That will not change. But for board members, we have a separate login. Okay, so we will.
Sorry, so they can just stay on the line, so to speak?
Yes.
Okay.
No, they will have to select the study session to log in and view it on the Granicus page.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I was misinformed. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Then I will see everyone at 7:30.
Perfect.